Hey, welcome back to Random Things with BK. Today we're going to be installing the balusters on my new staircase. And so we've already done the right hand side, but now I'm going to show you how to do the left hand side. First of all, I want to apologize for the low lighting, but that'll be a future episode of Random Things with BK when we install some extra can lights up here. But today I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about the templates that I made to do this. So I made 3 templates. One is for up here by the post, because the post comes off the wall or off the kick plate about 2 inches. So it had to have its own template so that the measurements would work out right. Next, I made a template for the regular steps that didn't have a post in the way. And just so you know that I'm not perfect, I drilled one of my holes wrong. So that one says bad. Don't use that hole. And I've used arrows and things so I know which direction to put it on the kick plate and which holes to use. So that one goes on the regular step. And then I had another area that my 2 other kick plates were too big for, and that's where these the newel posts are. And so I made a 3rd template that just has the 1 hole, and it goes basically in here just like this. And so then that allows me then to put my 1 post in. And next I'll show you how I use these templates to mark out all my holes, and then we'll move on to drilling the holes. Okay, so to get my template lined up the way I want it, I am looking to go, so I'm wanting it to be, my holes should line up 2 inches off the inside of this. I'm taking my straight edge with a level on it, just so I can make sure that it's coming down level. Once I have that level, then I'm taking my pinch clamp here and I'm clamping it to my post. So that gives me my outside So this gives me my outside line where I want it to be. And then I take my template and I scooch it over to where it's touching that, and I've made sure it's very square on the end. And so I'm in line here with my 2 inches, and I'm square across the back. And that should keep me in line with my post. And once I have that lined up, then I just take my pencil and I mark my 2 holes. And then when I remove it, you can see I've got a hole here and a hole here, and that's where I need to drill. So then I'm just going to repeat that onto the next step. Okay, so to drill the holes, I'm using my plunge router, which a plunge router is just a regular router, but it has a base that actually moves like this. Can you see that? And it's on springs. And the reason I'm using my plunge router is because it allows me to get an exactly straight hole down. Where if I was using a drill, and if you don't have a plunge router, you can just use a drill. But you've got to make sure you're drilling that hole as straight as possible. So this makes it easier. I'm also using, and if Rogers, you could kind of look here, this is what they call a Forstner bit. And you know it's a Forstner bit because it's just round on the end like a little clump of hair, like on these teenagers these days. And it'll have a point down here. And the reason I'm using a Forstner bit is because it cuts very round holes very easily. So I'm using a plunge router with a Forstner bit. Now you could just use a regular drill and a Forstner bit and get the same effect. It's just harder to get the holes exactly straight. Another nice thing about my plunge router is it has a depth setting. So the bottoms of my my balusters are 3/4 of an inch long. And so I could set my depth on my plunge router to where it only drills down the 3/4 of an inch. And it gives me a perfect hole all the way down because I'm using the Forstner bit. So this little setup's very handy, but don't feel like you can't do this without it. You could just use a regular drill with a Forstner bit and yeah, you'll be good to go. Now, in our previous video when we were building the jigs, I showed on the balusters using a round gauge to figure out what the size of the bottom of your baluster is. And that's important because that's the size Forstner bit that you'll need in order to put them in. And that'll make for a really tight connection in the bottom. Okay? All right, so with that all explained, now I'm going to drill our holes. All right, so next we'll start installing the balusters. Okay, so in order to figure out my baluster length, the easiest way that I found was to take my jig and put it down on the step and place my baluster in the hole with it lined up flat against the kick plate, because that gives me my spacing away from the kick plate. And then I work it to get it flat against my post here so that we're on my post. Then, because I'm worried about the length being correct on the length being correct on the angle, I take my level and I put it on here, and see, you can see this top line, it's level. So I've got my out spacing and I've got my level. So now I know that this is where it needs to be. So I go to the back side and I just draw my line. And then I've got this one marked. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the next two, but just so that I can keep up with which one's which. I'm going to find the side that has the line right here. I'm cutting this part off, so I'm going to put a 1 on there so I know that this is number 1. Alright, then I'm going to take my next jig. Again, I'm going to put it on here like this. That gives me my out spacing. My next newel is going to be a straight one. So I'm going to set it on here, just like so. Again, I'm going to take my level so that I can make sure that it's straight up and down. And then I'm going to mark it. So I've got to cut my newel post to length, so I'm going to use my angle grinder to do that. And I just have a towel down so that I don't scratch up the newel post on my fabrication table. And yeah, here we go. Let the sparks fly. Alright, so as you noticed, I cut it off. And then I took my angle grinder and I deburred the cut. So that's going to make it to where my bracket that I'm using for the top of my newels, so that I didn't have to have an angle. This is what I call my cheater bracket. That's going to fit over this like this. And you just kind of get it started. You can see I'm using a block of wood down here so that I don't hurt the bottom of the newel post. I'll put this on here, and then I take my mallet, give it a couple whacks, and then I'll flip it over, get the flat side down so that I can seat it in there pretty good. And I've got that one a little bit crooked, so I'm gonna try to get it straight. There we go. So that one's ready to install. And now we're just going to work on the other two. All right, cool. So this is just an old block I have. Like I said, I use that to make sure I don't bend these up on the bottom. And you can see the wood's softer than the metal, so they just kind of chew in a little bit. No big deal. That block gets used for that all the time. Okay, so we have our 3 of our 5 newels made up. We're going to take these upstairs and get them installed. So I'm getting ready to put the newel post in, and you know, I've attached this bracket. I have this nice shoe that goes over the bottom and we'll cover up the round part and make it look good down on the actual wood here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to slide it in, okay, and then I'm going to bring it up a little bit to get it to where I want it, and then I'm going to make sure that it's level. So like right there is where it's level. Okay, get this in here and make sure we're level. Okay, level that way, level that way. So now I'm going to try to hold it right there. And if you start your screw out real slow, it'll bite in better and it won't break like it did on me. And there we go. Number one. So now we'll do number two. Straight as we can. Down in the hole. Hey, so as you can see, we've wrapped it up. We've got all the balusters in. If this video was helpful to you, then I would really appreciate it if you liked it and subscribe to our channel for more upcoming videos, and share it with your friends. Let them know that we're out there. And anyways, hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time on Random Things with BK.